He was the most powerful man on earth. He ruled over 60 million people. He commanded the greatest army the world had ever seen. He lived in a palace so massive, so extravagant, that it literally swallowed an entire section of Rome. And yet none of that power was enough to stop him from becoming one of the most sexually depraved rulers in all of human history. We're talking about Emperor Nero of Rome. A man who, according to ancient historians, had a sexual obsession with his own mother, kicked his pregnant wife to death, executed his first wife on fabricated charges, and then, and I need you to stay with me here, because this is where it gets truly unhinged. He had a teenage boy castrated and married him in a full public ceremony. This isn't fiction. This is what ancient historians like Suetonius, Tacitus, and Cassius Dio recorded. And today, we're going to walk through every single scandalous detail, because the real story of Nero's love life is far darker than anything Hollywood could ever write. To understand Nero's twisted personal life, you first have to understand the woman who shaped him, his mother, Agrippina the Younger. Agrippina was one of the most ruthless power players in Roman history. She poisoned her own second husband to marry her uncle, Emperor Claudius. She then manipulated Claudius into adopting her son Nero and cutting his own biological son, Britannicus, out of the line of succession. When Claudius died in 54 AD, almost certainly poisoned, and Agrippina is the #1 suspect. Nero became emperor at just 16 years old. But here's where it gets deeply uncomfortable. The ancient historian Suetonius wrote that Nero harbored sexual desires toward his own mother. He recorded that Nero kept a concubine, a kept mistress, who was specifically chosen because she bore a striking resemblance to Agrippina. Whether or not Nero and Agrippina actually had a physical relationship remains debated by historians to this day. But what is not debated is what happened next. Agrippina disapproved of Nero's affairs and his increasing independence. She began plotting against him, even allegedly considering placing his cousin, Gaius Rubellius Plautus, on the throne instead. Nero decided she had to die. In 59 AD, he ordered the assassination of his own mother. His first attempt? He had an elaborate collapsible ceiling device built above her bedroom, designed to crush her in her sleep. It was too complex to install. His second attempt? A specially engineered boat designed to break apart and sink while she was on it. Agrippina was too smart. She survived and swam to shore. So Nero sent soldiers to stab her to death. He murdered his own mother, and according to Suetonius, her death haunted him for the rest of his life. He suffered recurring nightmares after her killing. Nero's first marriage was arranged when he was just 13 years old. His bride was Claudia Octavia, the daughter of Emperor Claudius himself. On paper, it was a perfect political match. It would cement Nero's legitimacy on the throne. But Nero felt nothing for Octavia. Their 8-year marriage produced no children, and by all accounts, it was cold and distant from the start. Then Nero met Poppaea Sabina. Poppaea was already married to a man named Otho, who was ironically one of Nero's closest friends. Ancient historians disagree on exactly how the affair began. Tacitus initially wrote that Nero simply stole her away, but in a later work he revised the story, suggesting that Poppaea deliberately seduced Nero as a calculated move to climb to power. She needed an entrance into imperial circles, and Otho provided it. Either way, Nero became obsessed with her, but Octavia stood in the way. So Nero did what any tyrant with unlimited power does. He fabricated evidence. He approached a man named Tacitus, a naval commander who had helped him murder his own mother. Nero bribed and pressured Tacitus into publicly confessing to a fake affair with Octavia. With this manufactured evidence of adultery, Nero had legal grounds to act. He exiled Octavia first. Then, just weeks later, he had her executed. Her head was reportedly cut off and sent to Poppaea as proof that the deed was done. Octavia was 33 years old. If this chapter surprised you, there's much more waiting. Subscribe to History's Dark Ledger, where history keeps its secrets no longer. Nero married Poppaea in 62 AD, and for a short time, it appeared to be one of the few genuine emotional connections in his life. Poppaea became pregnant, and in 63 AD, she gave birth to a daughter. Nero was reportedly overjoyed. The child was given the title of Augusta, an extraordinary honor. But the baby died just a few months after birth. Ancient sources say Nero wept publicly at the funeral, something almost unheard of for a Roman emperor. Poppaea became pregnant again. And this is where the story takes its darkest turn. In 65 AD, Nero and Poppaea got into a violent argument late at night. The exact cause of the fight is unclear. Some sources suggest it was about Nero's habit of staying out late at his parties and entertainments. What happened next is one of the most shocking claims in all of ancient Roman history. According to multiple ancient historians, Nero kicked Poppaea in the abdomen during the fight. She was pregnant. She collapsed, and within days, she was dead along with their unborn child. Now, some modern historians have questioned whether this is exactly how it happened. It is possible that Poppaea died from complications during pregnancy, and that hostile ancient writers blamed Nero to paint him as a monster. But the claim appears in multiple independent ancient sources, including Cassius Dio and Suetonius. Nero himself reportedly expressed deep grief afterward, and even had Poppaea deified, declared a goddess after her death. But grief, for Nero, lasted about as long as it took to find a replacement. And now we arrive at the chapter that will make you question everything you thought you knew about the ancient world. After Poppaea's death, Nero was said to be inconsolable, at least for a while. His courtiers began looking for ways to distract him, and then someone noticed something. There was a young freedman, a former slave in the imperial household. His name, or at least the name history remembers him by, was Sporus. He was around 16 years old. And according to ancient accounts, he bore a striking physical resemblance to the late Poppaea Sabina. Nero noticed, and what followed was one of the most disturbing acts of imperial abuse in Roman history. First, Nero ordered Sporus to be castrated. According to Suetonius, the emperor even reportedly offered enormous sums of money to any surgeon or practitioner who could fully transform Sporus into a woman. No one could do that, not in 67 AD, but the castration itself was carried out. Next, Nero had Sporus dressed exclusively in women's clothing, the finery and jewelry befitting a Roman empress. He assigned handmaidens and servants to attend to Sporus, styling and grooming him like a queen. A noblewoman named Calvia Crispinilla was appointed as his personal wardrobe mistress, and then Nero married him. Not in secret, not quietly, in a full public wedding ceremony, complete with a dowry, a bridal veil, and a massive crowd in attendance. Suetonius recorded it plainly. Nero married Sporus, with all the usual ceremonies, took him to his house, attended by a great throng, and treated him as his wife. Nero paraded Sporus through the streets of Rome and later through Greece, kissing him publicly. He referred to Sporus using the titles Lady, Empress, and Mistress. Some sources even claim Nero called him by Poppaea's name Sabina. A Roman living at the time reportedly quipped that the world would have been better off if Nero's own father had married someone more like Sporus, a savage joke that revealed just how deeply shocked Roman society was. But here is a detail that historians find truly fascinating and deeply eerie. Near the end of their time together, Sporus gave Nero a gift, a ring. And engraved on the stone of that ring was a scene from Roman mythology, the abduction of Proserpina, in which the god of the underworld drags an innocent young woman into the darkness of the underworld against her will, to be his captive forever. Whether Sporus chose that image deliberately as a quiet, defiant statement about his own fate, or whether it was simply a coincidence, historians will never know. But the symbolism is impossible to ignore. Nero's reign of excess and violence didn't last much longer. In 68 AD, the Roman Senate declared him a public enemy. He fled Rome in disguise, terrified and alone, the most powerful man in the world reduced to a fugitive hiding in a freedman's villa outside the city. When soldiers closed in, Nero attempted to kill himself, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He needed a servant to help him drive the sword home. His final words, according to ancient sources, were, "What an artist dies in me." He was 30 years old. And Sporus? He survived Nero. He was passed between two more men who claimed power in the chaos that followed. First a Praetorian prefect, then the Emperor Otho, each one forcing him to play the role of a wife. Eventually, Sporus took his own life. He was only about 20 years old. Nero's personal life wasn't just scandalous. It was a window into what happens when one person holds absolute unchecked power over millions. Every relationship he had was defined by control over his mother, over his wives, over Sporus. He didn't love people. He consumed them. And 2,000 years later, the ancient historians made sure the world would never forget it. If you made it this far, thank you. If this kind of dark history is what you're here for, subscribe to History's Dark Ledger, because we have a lot more where this came from.